Hello, my name is Dr. Anna Symonds. I'm a consultant clinical psychologist and director of Elysian Psychology. I've been having lots of similar conversations in therapy this week and last week. You can guess what about, no prizes for guessing, coronavirus and how everybody's feeling about it. So I thought that it might be really useful. I hope it serves you to think about how our feelings are at the moment, thinking about the psychological processes underlying them and what we can do. I'm all about growth and pain from things that we perhaps didn't want to happen or were very difficult, have been very difficult, are very difficult for us. So, like I say, I hope you find it helpful. Because everybody's feeling the same sort of emotion at the moment, it's really important to know that we're not alone. You are not alone. Everybody is feeling very similarly, and we may be on a very kind of similar path. Perhaps we're at different paces along that path, but we're all facing different anxieties and worries and concerns at some point. So whether you're at the stage of thinking, I need to buy lots of food, or you're thinking, how am I going to self-isolate, or you are self-isolating, or whether your anxieties have become wider kind of into the financial, economic projections going forwards, we're all going to be at different stages according to where we are, and that's okay. I think feelings are very much like waves. They come up and they come down. And what I want you to remember is in each of these feelings that you might have, wherever you are on that path, there's going to be lots of ups and downs. One thing that's very difficult about anxiety is this feeling out of control, and this is a situation that makes us feel out of control. Our response to feeling out of control with anxiety usually is to control. So whether that is that you go and buy lots of food, or you go and be with somebody, or have somebody from your family come live with you so that you feel okay, everybody's safe and they're here, whatever it is you need to do, I think it's okay right now. This is all about being kind to ourselves and saying, okay, this might be what I need to do right now. This is helpful for me. Awareness is key. It's knowing where you are in terms of your anxiety and monitoring that as well. We're a little bit in the unknown, aren't we? We don't quite know where we're at in terms of what's going to happen. And again, that's going to be a bit of a rocky ride. Sometimes with emotional processing, it's a bit like a roller coaster. We have to do the ups and the downs and the ups and the downs. And when it stops, and this will stop, remember, it absolutely will end. That's when we will do our emotional processing, and that's where we will sit and do our thinking. But what can help us is if we start doing some of that thinking now. So while we have time, if we're in isolation or in lockdown, rather than ruminating, rather than catastrophizing, rather than magnifying, trying to read the future, what's more helpful is if we look at how we are feeling in this moment and in the eye of the storm, understand what's happening and try and use that to help us. So anxiety or the unknown, or maybe we feel that we've got too much responsibility, I mean, that makes us feel very anxious as well. If you're a parent like me, or again, you're a business owner like me, we feel responsible for people, and sometimes that level of responsibility can make us feel quite anxious. Again, you're not alone. There probably are people that can contain you. Sometimes we are the containers for lots of people, and it's important that we have a container underneath us. Somebody, or sometimes that can be lots of different people that hold us underneath this to help us feel okay. So it's important that you access that support. As a container, if you are a container like me, then it's important that you realise what's happening if things become difficult. So when we all can only contain a certain level of emotion, and what happens is, say that's your container and what you can tolerate, things will happen like this that will come in. I appreciate people having probably other life events as well, because life isn't just stopping, so you may have a couple of things coming into your container, unfortunately, that you've got to deal with. And what's difficult is we could overflow, but usually what happens is the container stretches. It stretches to allow more of what's happening in, and that stretching, that growing of the container, that for having to find the emotional resources is what's really painful. That's stretching. But let me tell you, when this is done and when this calms down, because it will, and we do need to focus forwards on that in the hardest times, the container will still be big. You will be able to go out into the world with your container still big, still pretty, hopefully empty, but you'll still have that capacity. And that's how we develop kind of that's emotional resilience, isn't it, really? The capacity to be able to manage things that come in. Being a container, like I say, is hard for us. I think someone I really admire, Glennon Doyle, talks about how, you know, if you're on an aeroplane and there's turbulence, that you look to the cabin crew to check that they're okay. If they're okay, we're okay. It's a bit like that with parenting or business owner or whatever levels of responsibility you may have in your life. And what's crucially important, she says, you know, is keep smiling and serving the peanuts. I think you can serve peanuts on plates now, but you get the idea. So really what is important is that for those that we're containing that might be a bit more vulnerable, like our children, is that we keep serving the peanuts. But I don't think we have to do that all the time. I think it's okay sometimes for children or those who we're responsible for kind of seeing us struggling a little bit, because what they will learn from that is how we then pick ourselves back up, and the bounce back rate is incredibly important when we're thinking about emotional resilience and capacity. So don't worry if you think, but I'm the stoic one, I'm the one that pulls people through, I've got to hold it together. It's okay if you can't, because you'll be teaching people how to then bounce back and to pull themselves back together in that kind of scenario. And I think it's important within that and throughout all of this just to be really kind to ourselves. A lot of us have high expectations, we can be very critical about ourselves, and I think this is a time, it is a time to reflect. We'll come back on that in a minute, but it's a time to just be gentle with ourselves and to be really understanding of our thoughts and our feelings and not really fighting them. If we get into resistance with our thoughts or our feelings, it makes life incredibly difficult. So really it's about accepting where we're at. So we have lots of thoughts, something like 80,000 a day, which is 1 every 1.2 kind of seconds, you know, it's a lot of thoughts. And it's about kind of catching the thoughts and kind of go, okay, well, what am I thinking? What specifically am I anxious about? What is it? Is it that I need to get more milk? Is it that my business is going to collapse? Is it I'm going to lose my home? What is it? Try and get the specifics of it. And then it's kind of sitting with that thought and the fear that brings you. Feelings, again, are like waves. They come up and they come down. And your job is to be on a little surfboard and kind of, or maybe you need a big surfboard, I don't know, but to ride the wave up and to ride it down again. Knowing that it will end, because all emotional pain ends. It's important you remember that. But knowing that we don't have to necessarily believe our thoughts. Okay, so many thoughts are going to feel very real. But what we've got to do is look out for errors in our thinking. Am I catastrophizing? Am I going to the worst case scenario? If you are going to the worst case scenario, think, okay, but there's whatever chance that that might happen. Okay, but maybe there's also a chance, whatever percentage chance that it's not going to happen. You know, our brains are going to go to the negative bias. They're going to go to the really difficult position, and we've got to rein ourselves back. It's a bit like a fishing reel. We have one thought and our brain can go, ooh, okay, put a thought way out there, you know, in between, and we have to reel it back in. And that's part of how we pull ourselves back sometimes. So just keeping an eye on your thoughts and just letting them come in, sitting with the feeling they bring you and letting them come out again. Seeking support as well if you need to do that, or kind of distracting yourself. But certainly don't let these thoughts kind of build up, because you will get into overwhelm, and that's not very healthy for you. Really, if you're doing, again, lots of what if thinking, I think we have to rein ourselves back into what is, and what is happening probably in any given moment. If you catch yourself right now and you say, okay, well, how do I feel right now? What is happening right now? Is it probably, yeah, you might be feeling anxious and certain, but really nothing probably, hopefully, is happening really bad right now. So being in the moment, focusing on that, and when your brain goes off into, but what if this, that, the other, go, okay, but that's not happening now. And if that happens, I will prepare, I will deal with that then. Knowing that you have the emotional resources. Come on, we can do hard things. We do hard things all the time in life, don't we? Maybe for some people this is one of the hardest things they've had to deal with. I imagine not if you're an adult. You know, you've probably been through trickier times, unfortunately. So we can do hard things. Don't doubt yourself. You can do hard things. And sometimes when we don't have a choice, we have to do hard things. So a real kind of, okay, but when that happens, if that happens, I will deal with it then. But I can't really deal with that now. Anxiety will tell you, I need to be, like it wants to keep you away from the situation. It wants you to, wants to prevent you from going near it, or kind of doing something to help it and make it better. But what I'm saying to you is sometimes you can't get to that. That's not, you don't need to do that. Just come back to here. Okay, right now my family is safe. We are here. You know, we have what we need in the cupboards or whatever. We are okay. Right now, this second, all good. Yeah, I'll deal with anything else that comes along later. I think we need to, in difficult times, focus forwards on how we want things to be. How do you want to come out of this? When things are really difficult in the given moment, we can kind of you should be aware and do all the things I've said, but sometimes what you can also do is project yourself forwards in a good way only, and sort of saying, okay, well, if I, you know, how do I want to come out of this? this is going to end. This uncertainty, okay, you might argue, you might say to me, well, I don't know how I'm going to come out of it on the other side, okay, but how emotionally do you want to come out of it? This is like a massive reset, isn't it? It's a chance to reevaluate our relationships, our priorities, you know, a chance to maybe even be a bit, we might have a bit more patience in terms of, you know, you might manage Monopoly with your children. Maybe not, good luck with that, but we might find we've got a bit more patience to be doing things and a bit more emotional resilience. So it's a case of kind of taking those opportunities and thinking, right, how do I want to come out of this? How do I want to reset? We take a lot of things for granted. You know, we take our relationships for granted, the fact that we can go to a shop and buy food for granted. This is going to really rejig us. And it's going to help us prioritise. It can be absolutely brilliant if we want it to. And as I said before, nobody wants this emotional pain in this container to have to stretch, and maybe even stretch a couple of times throughout this process. But what we'll be left with could be incredible if we make the most of it, particularly in the eye of the storm. But I appreciate that some people might just be holding on. And if you just think, I've just got to hold on, then just do whatever you need to do to hold on. I think a lot of us are projecting, so when I was saying only about a specific anxiety, some of us may have a specific anxiety about something and you can access that. For some of us, it's gone past the point of this being about the virus, and what's happened is it's become a mechanism and a vehicle for us to project our greatest fears onto, for our greatest worries. And so whether it's like, I'm going to lose my business, I'm going to lose my home, I'm going to lose a family member, whatever it might be. And that's what needs sorting out. You know, a lot of anxiety is about loss and fear and that sort of thing. So it's become a vehicle for that for us. So it's very triggering. It can bring up a lot of stuff that we thought was okay, things that lie dormant or just we can function. They're outside of our minds, and all of a sudden, whoa, they are right there. So that might be something that needs a bit of working through.